That's the one that a lot of, they use on a lot of the websites. Print it out. If the pen and paper is not in your 40 seconds,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Jeff George. We're very happy to have anybody running against Connie Mack. Now, Jeff lives right here in St. Paul. He's a young man who was born in '68. Good Lord. He's single.
There you go, girl.
And here he is. And he's going to take it from here.
Excuse me, I'm doing double duty right now. Our normal cameraman is actually filming N.A.R.F.E Most Wanted here in Lee County. Unfortunately, none of the people I'm running up against are going to be featured on that show this week. Luckily, I won't be on there either, so I guess we're doing good. First of all, I want to thank you all for having me here. It's a real pleasure to get the opportunity to come and speak to you. And this is really one of the main things this campaign is all about, is having the opportunity to get out and just sit down and speak with folks like you. Right now, everyone is kind of wrapped up in the presidential primaries, and there's this real sort of feeling of hope and optimism that all we have to do is elect a new president, get rid of this old administration, and somehow everything is gonna fix itself. Unfortunately, as I stand here talking to an organization that's been around for over 8 decades, I'm sure you know that that's not the case. Whatever happens in the presidential elections this November, the partisan rancor in Washington, D.C. is not going to go away. The seemingly intractable and politically unpopular issues aren't going to get resolved easily. So what is the most important thing for us here in Southwest Florida is, I personally feel, is that while obviously there's great importance in the presidential race, we need to look beyond the presidential politics, and we really need to take a close look at what's going on in the congressional races. In Congress. We need to restore the balance of power between the judicial branch, the legislature, and the president. We need to get rid of this idea that we're developing now of an imperial president, and make sure that people who don't have the $10,000, the $100,000 checks ready are actually represented. Now, what I want to do is a little different, and actually you can see this is like my first podium speech in a while here. Normally I just like to sit down with everybody and talk, and instead of me standing up here and giving you a long-winded speech about what I believe and what I think is right for this district, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take questions from all of you, and also I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your organization and what your goals are and what you find important in an election. Now, as you can see, we've got Chuck back here who is on camera. And this camera is actually a very important part of this campaign because every politician is going to stand up here and tell you, if you elect me, things are going to be different this time. The question is how do you get these guys, or how do you get guys like me to put our money where our mouth is? So we came up with something a little different. Essentially, we have a watchword. It's a very simple acronym, TIA: transparency, integrity, and accountability. Now, those are fine ideals. I'm sure you're not going to find any politician anywhere who is going to say he has a problem with those. But what we're doing is we're going to have this camera with us the entire campaign. Not just when I'm standing up here speaking to you, but almost 24/7. We set up a campaign headquarters in Fort Myers in November, and we've got the camera pretty much running in there constantly. And I've actually set myself up a bedroom in the back of the campaign headquarters, so I'll be living there for the next 11 months. And the reason that we're doing this isn't a gimmick. One of the most important issues I think that we have in election politics today is the same as it's always been. How do you trust these guys that come up here and tell you that they're going to represent you? So we want to establish that trust. And seeing as how I've never held federal office before, obviously, I've never held local office either. So I think, in a case like this, everybody is talking about change and how important change is. And change is good. Change is great. I've been speaking out about the need for change at least for the last 7 years now. And I remember, 7 years ago, anybody who stood up anywhere in front of a microphone or in front of a group and started talking about changing things, there was a word for that person, and that was crazy. Nobody wanted to go up against this administration. And now, thankfully, the many flaws that we see with this current president have come to light, and now everybody is talking about change. So, what we're going to do is not only are we going to film everything on this campaign, but if I'm elected, I promise you that camera is going to follow me to Washington, D.C. And what we're doing here in this district, we're going to do the exact same thing in Washington, where we're going to give you, the people of this district, the opportunity to see what we're doing every day. Not quite every hour. I got to go to sleep and use the bathroom sometimes here and there. But for the most part, everything that we do, we're going to show it to you. And what we're doing is, at the moment, as I speak right now, this is streaming out live over the internet. Then we're going to take the footage that Chuck shoots today, and we're going to stream that out also. And we'll edit it down so people who don't want to spend hours and hours watching me gab and sit in front of my computer actually have something interesting to look at. So again, what I would like to do is turn this over to all of you now, and let me know what are your questions, what are your most important issues. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Mark Harris. Why did you locate your office in Fort Myers? Even Congressman Mack moved his office to Cape Coral as a Cape Coral man. Why didn't you put it in Cape Coral where it belongs?
Well, it's true. Over 2/3 of the population of Lee County is here in Cape Coral. I've lived in Cape Coral on and off since 1979. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. When I was 3 years old, my family moved from Ohio here to Fort Myers. We lived in Fort Myers until '79, and then we moved here to Cape Coral. When I was 18, after high school, I went to the Army for 5 years. And I spent time in the Army in Germany, and then I got out 2 days before Iraq invaded Kuwait. And being the young gung-ho fool that I was, I immediately realistically to go back in. And of course, what the Army always does with volunteers, they sent me to Korea instead of the Gulf War. So I spent another 2 years in Korea. Then after I got out, I went to a vocational school and finished off my education in electronics and computers. And I ended up working for a German-American company that was based here in the area in Naples. And during that time, it was right in the middle of the dot-com bubble. So we were working with building networks all over North America, South America, Africa, Europe. And this may seem like a roundabout way to your very simple question, but the reason I bring that up is because I've lived all over this district and I've been all over the place. And the reason that we picked the house in Fort Myers is very simple, logistics. It had a great parking lot right next to it, and there was few houses available. But you can rest assured that we're going to be back and forth between Fort Myers and Cape Coral here all the time. My mother and my grandmother still live here in the city. Yes, sir.
How about Burrow? I just wondered if your girlfriend is in California.
No, I am single at the moment. I'm not dating any congresswomen. So I won't be going back and forth, so hopefully that's a plus. A question that I do have for all of you is we spent some time looking into your organization and what your interests are. But would someone here care to kind of articulate what your main issues are here for N.A.R.F.E?
Well, I don't know the overall issues of the county, but my wife was a federal employee, not me, and I get Social Security, but she tried to apply to get the spousal benefit, and apparently there was some rule in there which was passed something like 25 years ago that federal employees, unless there's a big differential in pay, that they were not entitled to Social Security on the spousal benefit.
Okay, from what I understand, and feel free to anyone to jump in here and correct me, is that essentially for federal employees that there are two retirement systems. There's the old civil service retirement system, and then there's the federal employee retirement system, which was started, I believe, in '86, '87. Okay, first, okay.
That's federal employees.
Right.
Okay. So how many, does anybody know, how many people are covered under the old system and how many people are covered under the new system? Very roughly. Anybody in the spot, for example?
CSRS?
About $1.5 million under the old system, I don't know what the new system is.
And, this is a loaded question. How is Representative Mack been, in terms of listening to your?
Non-responsive.
Is
He sent several letters, he hasn't responded to any of them.
Yeah, somehow I don't find it surprising that
Neither way.
What's your issue?
He's too busy going to council.
apparently so. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Shirley Sloper, and something that Bob said, one of the things that affects me and affects a lot of people, I should draw a check from Social Security, but because I draw a check from federal, it's cut way down, so I'm not able to draw my full amount. Also, my husband passed away, and he also had, but I couldn't even draw his, which he drew more than I did, because being a federal, and this is one of the things that we're working on to try to get, I paid into Social Security, so why shouldn't I get back what I paid in?
This is the windfall elimination provision.
Yes.
Right, correct.
The
Yes,
same
ma'am.
thing applies to my husband and myself, although we used to pay a living, but should we do deceased, then I cannot draw as much of his Social Security because I'm drawing the and I'll never be able to draw my Social Security because there's just, I pay the interest, I'll never draw it. For the retirement plan.
Yeah, if I give you some background, the average federal annuitant in the state of Florida gets about $1,600 a month, something like that. Which everybody thinks all federal retirees are fat and got lots of money, fat cats, and they got all kind of money in the world. The average is like $1,600. With the cost of living in Florida, so it doesn't do you much good. A lot of people have second jobs or have second jobs for which they pay into Social Security. Well, because they get a federal retirement, there's the offset, the windfall elimination, which actually was originally designed to take care of all the generals who worked in the Pentagon, who went out and got jobs through the revolving door with the contractors that they oversaw. But as usual, when you pass things in Washington, and I worked there 30 years, so I'm kind of used to it, you have the unintended consequences that affected everybody else. So even though you went out and you earned that Social Security benefit, you don't get it because somebody 20-some years ago said that's a windfall. And so we've been trying to get rid of it for years. The other major issue is one where when we were federal employees, our health care was paid with pre-tax dollars. Once you retire, when they wrote the law, they just said employees, they didn't say retirees, so they forgot to put 2 words in there. So as soon as you retire, what was not taxable before, now that you're a retiree and you're getting less money, it's now taxable. Okay. And we've been trying to get that fixed. And every time you go and you talk to anybody, and we've talked to Senator Martinez about it, and his answer is, well, this is all going to be taken care of as part of Social Security reform. Yeah, well, if you got into office, by the time you got out of office, Social Security won't be reformed. So their whole position is we're basically not going to deal with it because it costs too much money. Well, we got enough money to go to war in Iraq. So, it's kind of a strange set of consequences, shall we say.
And that's always a standard we can go back to, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
All the domestic problems that we have, and then you look at the $2 billion a week that we're spending in Iraq, and it does put everything into perspective. Let me just, yes, ma'am.
I have a question also. They did away with something called retirement income credit, which meant people who worked for the railroad years and years ago and federal employees, a certain percentage, we got a tax credit so that our pension was not taxed, just like people having Social Security then were not taxed. But now, certain amounts of Social Security, as long as you don't have other income, you don't pay a tax on it. but we pay tax on all of our retirement income. There's no more retirement income credit, and, yeah, right, well, at any rate, you know, it just doesn't seem to be right. Only 2% of my pension is not taxed because I'm getting 2% of all the money I paid into this pension back at 2% a year. So if I could live to be about 200 years old, I'll get my money back without paying tax again.
Let me just get a quick show of hands here. How many people here in this room are directly affected, have their pensions directly affected by this issue?
Or what?
That issue.
Well, the general issues that the
Oh, yeah, the general issues, yeah, all three of them, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is I have a friend, whenever I bring up Social Security, he immediately likes to jump into the old saw that, you know, it's the third rail of politics, and then nobody wants to talk about it. And this is actually, you know, there's no question about it. We have to do something about Social Security and also the issue of health care in general in this country. I understand that there are a lot of specific issues with health care that apply to retired federal employees, but really this comes under the much broader heading of health care in general, I think. And for the most part, I would consider myself a libertarian with a few progressive leanings, and the one area that I think I'm progressive in is the issue of health care. I think we need to stop dancing around these incremental fixes and have a real system of universal health care in this country. I think the best plan that I've seen so far that's been put forward was put forward in 2005 by Congressman Conyers and Kucinich, H.R. 676, which is basically a plan to extend Medicare to everybody, everybody who is a citizen and a legal resident in this country. And there's a fairly solid system for financing and everything behind it. But I'm a little frustrated with all the presidential candidates, with the exception of Congressman Kucinich on the Democratic side. Really, nobody is talking about fixing this problem in the way that needs to be fixed, which is universal health care. And by going after that, you know, all of the healthcare related problems that this particular group, that your particular group is having, should be resolved. Even if there are smaller issues in the nature and the quality of the care, you know, once you put everybody under the same system, some of the things that are getting ignored now in your healthcare plan, you can definitely be addressed once everybody is covered by the same system. And basically, the way that the HR 676 had about 76 co-sponsors, I believe. The way that plan works is essentially it is it's full basic coverage. It's everything but cosmetic coverage, and it leaves the option for private insurance companies to provide supplemental insurance if necessary. So I think in terms of all of the healthcare issues, that would be my primary focus is bringing in universal healthcare. You know, yes.
Well, I'm going to ask a different question, not on that. What is your stand on illegal aliens?
The big issue of this year. I guarantee you that's going to be the red meat issue in 2008. You know, this is a really difficult issue to talk about, and I think what we really have to do is we have to bring back a little common sense and a little compassion to this issue. You know, I think there are some people out there who feel that, let's say that somehow, theoretically, it is possible to deport the 11, 12 million illegal immigrants that we have in this country. Okay, if you want to suggest that, in theory, I'll go along with that. If you're also willing to fine or jail everybody who's ever hired an illegal alien. You know, the way that I feel is that this is not a one-way problem. This isn't just simply a problem of people coming from Mexico and South America and elsewhere in the world, coming to this country and somehow cleverly deceiving everybody that they're actual residents. We know this isn't the case. This problem was created as much by the demand for illegal employment as it is the supply. And what we need to do is we need to do two things. First of all, we need to be realistic and how we are going to address these people that have lived here sometimes for decades illegally. We need to come up with something realistic for them, and at the same time, we need to have a consistently enforced immigration policy. You know, the big problem that we have is that if we, this is almost a cliche, but it really is true, if we actually enforce the regulations and the laws that we have on the book, and on the books now, we wouldn't have this problem. But it is politically convenient, or it is financially expedient for people within the system of government, or people who are financing the candidates to overlook these regulations here and there. So if you're looking for somebody who's going to say we need to get rid of all the illegals, I'll tell you right now that I'm not your man. Yes, sir.
You just made a very interesting statement, which is the rules, if the rules that are on the books were enforced, the problem we have today, it wouldn't be as bad as it is. It'd probably still happen, I guess. You go up to Congress, how are you going to change that? Because that's a mindset, that's an operation, that's how they work in Washington. Everybody's going to go up there and change it. In about 3 weeks, they're all going to buy in to the D.C. scene and be totally co-opted by the whole thing. How are you going to change that? Because you're talking about over, what, 500 and something people you got to get to agree to make a change and something. How do you do that? Everybody says they're going to go fix this stuff. I've seen lots of people come into Washington say they're going to fix it. It'll last about 6 months. But then they're all at the same parties and doing whatever else they do.
Well, I'll tell you, there are a couple of differences in what we're doing and what we hope to accomplish. The first difference, I think a big part of the problem that we have right now is the two-party system and the way that election politics are financed. You know, I looked at I looked at the possibility of running for local office a few years ago, and the conclusion that I came to is that it would have been very difficult for me to get involved in that system without starting to sell away some of the important points that I hope that we can accomplish in this election. Now, when you talk about changing things, you know, it requires two things. Number one, it requires politicians who are going to go to Washington with the will to change things, and it requires a constituency who is going to have the will, the interest, and most importantly, the means to keep that politician on track. And that's what we're hoping to do with the media side of this. That's what we're hoping to do with the cameras and with the internet access. We all know how federal politics works. I mean, the long and the short of it is, for the most part, if you go to a congressman or a senator's office or even a presidential candidate, if you don't walk in there without a check, odds are they're not going to talk to you. And this isn't necessarily, I'm not criticizing the morality of everybody who's in Congress or everybody who's ever been president. This is just unfortunately the way the system works. You know, in order to stay in office, a congressional candidate has to come up with $1.5 million, $2 million every 2 years. Senatorial candidates, $10 million now is the going rate. You know, with that kind of money being required, it's difficult to do anything. So what we're hoping to do is, more than anything, we want to change the way that election politics run. And the way that we can do that is what we're doing right here, right now, is I want to make sure that everybody in this district has the opportunity to reach us and to see what we're doing, and by extension, to follow everything that I do. When I go to those committee meetings, when I talk to the PACs, when I talk to the special interests, or when I talk to everyday citizens, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to see what's actually being said and done. And my hope is that we can get everyone to understand and to believe again that everyday citizens can make a difference. And again, I know, you know, I'll be 40 this year, and I know in my 40 years and the 40 years before that, and probably the 160 years before that, politicians have always said the same thing. But I think we have a real opportunity now. We have, you know, we have the new technology of the internet and the new media to watch these things, to keep track of people like never before. And also, the world is really at a changing point right now. We are in the 21st century. We're entering a new age where it's not about the city that you live in. It's not about the town you live in, the state, or even the country. Everything is global. Everything has global repercussions. You know, right now, somebody from Scotland or from Africa or Europe could be watching this. You know, when we spend money here in the U.S., you know, because of the way the global economy works, that odds are what we spend money on here, that has an immediate financial impact on somebody in India. When we go out and we speak, when we make TV shows, when we make movies, everything that we do, I mean, there's between the telecommunications and the financial structure of the world, everything is global now. And so, with this new understanding, I think comes a dawn of a new awareness. And I'm not going to stand up here and say that the U.S. needs to sell its soul to the World Trade Organization or to the UN or anything like that. You know, those global institutions, those will come in time. But the first thing that we need is we need to go back to that basic idea of transparency, integrity, and accountability. We need to make sure that everything that the government is doing is transparent to the people, and that, most importantly, it's accountable to the people as well. And there's no way that I can absolutely offer you 100% guarantee that when I go up there as one of 435 people in the House and 100 senators and the president and his cabinet are going to change immediately. We know that's not going to happen. But this can be a start. This can be a start of something different. If we change the way that we're running the elections, if we change the way that people can access their congressmen, then that goes a long way towards changing things in Washington. Okay. Any other questions?
How are you going to get the electoral college thing so that every person has that vote and they're still understand that? How do you recommend doing that?
That is a change I would actually like to see. You know, and it's interesting. I mean, if you look at the mentality behind the electoral college, it was supposedly came about so that smaller states would have better representation in the presidential election. Again, with the way that the media runs things now, that's kind of gone. All I can tell you on that issue is that I promise you that you'll have a congressman that will be in favor of getting rid of the electoral college. Any other questions?
I'd like to make a statement. We have outstanding medical coverage, probably because of the N.A.R.F.E, most likely. But we couldn't have any better medical coverage than anybody. Something you might want to keep that in mind. Federal employees do.
That's good to hear. And, you know, I always find it kind of ironic that you see a lot of people in Congress, in the Senate, who are out there rallying against the idea of so-called socialized medicine when they have one of the best socialized medical plans in the world. This is something that was actually brought to my attention indirectly by Michael Moore, is that he made a challenge last year to the presidential candidates to essentially say that they would not accept their government health care until everybody in the country had the same coverage. Even though I'm not a presidential candidate, I decided to take him up on that challenge. I am committed to making sure that everybody has the same quality of health care that I hope that all of you enjoy. And so, if elected, I am not going to use my family health care, which isn't such a stretch. I haven't had health insurance in about 5 years. Any other questions?
You're going to need it if you go to DC.
Yes, ma'am.
I have this thing about the primaries. To me, I don't think it's right that they have one state that gets to vote first and another one. I think the whole country ought to vote on the same day in the primaries, just like the election. Because otherwise people can, well, I want to vote for a winner, he's winning. So instead of using your own mind and voting for who you really want.
Again, Chuck and I were just talking about that the other night when we were watching the New Hampshire primaries, that very issue. That's a whole big can of political challenge there, because you're going up against all the states who have a vested interest in seeing that their state gets some attention. But yeah, again, this is something that I would like to see. I don't think that this is an unreasonable request to mandate that every stakeholder primary is on the same day. This all falls under the broader heading of campaign reform and election reform and candidate reform in Washington. And what we have to do is we have to fire the first salvo. We have to fire the first shot. And the first shot is getting someone who, number one, is not from the two-party system, who's not a Republican, who's not a Democrat, into office, and number two, doing it in such a way that it sends a clear message, and more importantly, a good example of how we can do things as citizens. So that's what we need to do first. And again, I want to thank you all so much for having me here. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what party you're running under, Democrat?
I'm running as an independent.
Independent.
And right now, this is an interesting race this year because it seems like we have a four-way race. We have our incumbent, Connie Mack. We have Bert Saunders, who has been a lifelong Republican. He's currently a state senator. He's decided to run against Connie Mack as an independent. We have Larry Burns, who is the Democratic nominee, and then we have myself. So I think this is going to be a really interesting election. And my guess is if things get rolling the way that I foresee, we're going to also have a lot of national attention on this election.
Why?
Well, because, I think it's unusual where you're going to have a situation. We all know, we all know how popular Connie Mack is. He's not very popular at all. But like most of the districts in this country, we have essentially a one district, or one party district. But now what we have is we have a situation where we have the potential for two amazingly strong independent candidates running up against the Republicans and the Democrats. And I think that's going to attract a lot of attention because this is a situation that doesn't occur that often. It should also be interesting to see the slugfest between Bert Saunders' camp and Connie Mack's camp, because we all know the GOP is not known for its charity when it comes to the idea of perceived disloyalty. So having a lifelong Republican breaking ranks and running against an independent, an incumbent Republican is a pretty big deal. And I think, again, also with the way that we're doing this campaign, some of the things that we have planned with the mainstream media in the next few months, this should also be bringing a lot of attention to this election. So it promises to be an exciting congressional election this year.
Question, given what you've said so far, what's your opinion on the tax code?
The tax code. One of the very first groups that I went out and talked to when we fired up the cameras, I went out and I talked to the Libertarian Party. And of course, a big issue with them, and we're seeing it also might not be doing so well in the Republican primaries, is the fair tax. I am completely committed to maintaining a progressive tax system. We have to have a progressive tax code. There's no question about that. However, if it is possible that we can do this without taxing income, if we can, one of the things I find interesting about the fair tax are you all familiar with the fair tax? One of the things I find interesting about the fair tax is that because of the rebate that's included in that plan, it is essentially a progressive tax. Now, I have a lot of questions about the fair tax. I'm not sure if it can be realistically implemented or not. I think one of the biggest problems I have with the fair tax is, it's a very intricate plan, and I can't imagine what the fair tax would look like once it went through committee. I do have concerns about it, but I am open to the idea of alternative taxation. I think first and foremost, we need to make sure that whatever we do, it's a progressive system.
Actually, first and foremost, if you make any changes, is you really got to grandfather all the programs that already exist and put on the books to use the tax system to make sure things got done. Because if you take all of that away, you're going to have things collapsing all over the place.
Exactly.
And that's what I don't hear anybody talking about, grandfather and things like that.
Yeah, it's completely changing the way that we tax things in this country. It's a massive undertaking, and it has to be done in a very careful way. And most importantly, it has to be done with an incredibly broad consensus, because Like I said, you know, if you take a plan like that and you try and it gets torn up in committee, it's going to fall apart and it's going to cause major economic damage to this country. So, I know, you know, it's interesting being here and talking to all of you because, you know, one of the things that's particularly frustrating me about this administration is that the lack of respect for professional people in government and in the bureaucracy. You know, I was an intelligence analyst in the Army, you know, and when I read about, I was a very low-level analyst, not as low-level as you could possibly be in the Army, but I do understand how the community works. And I think one of the things that we have to get back to in this country is we have to get back to the idea of respecting professionals in government to do their job. This is a really important issue because, you know, we see this terrible disregard for science, for procedure that is coming out of this administration, and in every case, it always leads to disaster. They didn't listen to the top brass before going into Iraq. You see how well that's turned out. They completely ignored the professionals in FEMA, and we see what happened with Katrina. You know, with the issue of global warming, it was a very active campaign to suppress the very solid science that's coming out of the EPA. And now every day, more and more people are realizing that there's a price to pay for that. So we have to get back to this respect for people in government and for government employees. Any other questions? All right. Again, I want to thank you so much for having me here. You know, one of the things that we're doing on this campaign is because as an independent, there is no way I can realistically raise the kind of money that N.A.R.F.E or a mainstream party candidate can hope to raise. So we are really going to be dependent on volunteers. And this campaign is really, it's all about us in this district. It's not about getting me elected. It's about getting us a voice in there. And the only way that that's going to work is if the people in this district are willing to put in some time and to commit some time to give me a chance to see what I can do, and hopefully we can all work together to bring this up. So if you're interested in what I have to say here tonight and you want to get more involved, you can check us out on the web at crazyforcongress.com. Of course, we're always open to the idea of donations, but that's not why I'm here tonight. So if anybody would like, I've got some bumper stickers with me, and after I get done standing behind this podium, if you want to sit down and there's any issues you want to talk about, we've got about an hour or so before I need to leave, so I'd love to talk with you. Otherwise, thank you again so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing you more over the next year. Thank you.